Handsome Homebuyer here, AKA Captain Permit, AKA El Judío Maravilloso. And today, we're going to talk about a topic that keeps coming up over and over again, condos versus co-ops, and does it make sense to buy either? Big topic's been coming up a lot. I wish somebody taught me this 10, 15, 20 years ago. The difference between co-ops and condos, and does it make sense to buy one, period. The truth, at least my truth, might shock you. All right, so what's the difference? Co-ops. Co-ops, big thing back in the 80s. Developer comes in, takes a piece of property, builds on that property, then sells the units. Now, he sells the units, but there's an underlying mortgage on the property, but then each unit, as it gets purchased, has an additional mortgage on it, right? You don't actually own the real property. What you own is shares in a corporation. So the property itself is held in an entity that has a mortgage on it. You with me? Now, you then purchase not the unit, but shares, and essentially you are renting. You're purchasing these shares for the exclusive right to rent your particular unit. You don't pay taxes, that's all rolled in. A lot of times the utilities are rolled down to the maintenance fee, and the maintenance fee is typically more expensive than a condo that was built at the same time that is the same size, because in a condo it's broken out a little bit differently. All right, so the risk here obviously is these things typically sell for less money, and if somebody doesn't pay their maintenance, which is higher, it's kind of a domino effect and everybody else has to cover that. Okay, but again, nothing you should run from. I myself owned a co-op in Long Beach. It wasn't a terrible experience. Each co-op has a board. They have different rules. Some you can rent out, some you can't rent out. It really depends. All right, condo is very different. Condo is real property. So a developer will come in, he will buy a piece of land, he will build a condo building, and he will sell the individual units. Now, there is no underlying mortgage on the property, and you're buying the actual unit in the same way that you're buying a house. You pay your separate utilities, everything typically. You pay real estate taxes directly as if same thing as a house, and you pay your mortgage. And again, it's real property. You're not owning shares in some type of entity, all right? There is a condo board also. There's different rules on can you rent, can you not rent, who do they let in? Do they allow you to sell your condo at a certain price? If the market's dropping, they might not let the sale go through because they don't want all the values to drop as a result. There's a lot of different restrictions, and it really depends on the condo or co-op board that you're dealing with and the location that you're dealing with. All right, so, but the more important thing is, does it make sense? My buddy William calls me up the other day and he goes, yo, two things. A, I know that William is looking for the love of his life. He's like, it's time to get serious. I'm 39 years old. I've gone out there and done everything, and now I want to meet Mrs. Right. But at the same time, I have a really nice apartment. I'm paying $4,000 a month, and I'm tired of paying rent because I feel like I'm throwing money away. My opinion, you're not really throwing money away, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to go and buy a condo, a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom condo. Does it make sense to buy a condo? In my opinion, 85% of the time, it does not make sense to buy a co-op and a condo, or a condo. And this is why. Let's say you're William for a minute. You're 39 years old, you're a bachelor, but you don't want to be a bachelor. Or you're 27 years old or 32 years old. Irrelevant. You're single typically, or maybe you have a girlfriend, or maybe you just got married and you buy this condo. When you purchase a piece of property, there's a lot of transactional fees associated with buying and selling real estate in general. So when you buy it, you're gonna have closing costs, etc. Let's say you buy a middle of the road condo and your closing costs are $25,000. Then you have to pay to furnish it, all that stuff, you have this great condo. Then let's say William, a year down the road after he buys this condo and he loves it, meets Mrs. Right. Mrs. Right moves in, they date for a year, they get married, they want to have kids, she's pregnant. It's now 3 years into when William bought his condo. Now she turns to him and says, yo, we need more space. We're in a 1-bedroom condo and we're about to have a kid, and I want to have another 1 or 2 or 3 more kids, who knows? We got to sell the condo, we got to get rid of it. So you have two options basically. You can either sell the condo or you can rent the condo. Here's the problem. You have $25,000 in closing costs when you purchased it. We don't know what the market has done. At this point in the market cycle, are things gonna go up? I mean, they've been going up for the last 10 or 12 years. Is it gonna go down? We don't know. So it could go up, okay, it could go down. but you're already $25,000 in the hole from your closing costs. Now when you sell the property, you're gonna list it with a realtor. Typical real estate commissions are 4%. So if it's a $500,000 condo, you now have $20,000 plus closing costs, so call it $30,000 in real estate commissions and closing costs. So you have $30,000 closing costs and commissions on the way out, $25,000 closing costs on the way in is $55,000. So that means that condo, just for you to break even, forget about all the work you did inside to it, if you did renovation work, the furniture you bought, etc., would have had to appreciate over 10% in that period of time. Historically, over a lifetime, real estate appreciates 3% annually, but it depends on which way the market's gonna swing. And can you unload it? What happens if the market drops down? Who knows? I mean, if the market shoots up, yeah, you can make money, that's great. The point is this, I personally don't think, depending on where you are in your life, it makes sense to buy a condo or a co-op. Because unless you're gonna be there for an extended period of time, you're most likely not gonna get the appreciation. And also, in the first, let's say 10 years that you have a mortgage, you're paying primarily interest. You're not paying down a lot of principal. So you paid $500, you have $55,000 in transactional fees, you didn't pay down a lot of principal, you paid mostly interest because of the way an amortization schedule is set up over 30 years. So you're probably gonna take a hit on it, and it doesn't really make sense. A lot of people turn to me and say, Charles, yeah, but I can always rent it. Yeah, you can rent it, but from personal experience, I'll tell you, on a $500,000 condo or on condos in general, typically, you're paying a decent amount of money for them, the taxes are not cheap, the maintenance is not cheap, and as a result, the rent most of the time doesn't cover it. So now you're going into your pocket every month. Even if it's barely covering it, or you're making a few dollars, it still doesn't make sense. If somebody, what if somebody moves out and it's vacant for a few months? What if someone decides they don't want to pay you? What happens if a pipe bursts? What happens if something needs to be fixed? What happens if a bathroom needs to be done? All of a sudden, you're going into your pocket. Plus, you have that on your credit. Depending on how much you make, it makes it harder for you to buy something else. Other times, people put that big down payments down for these condos. They need that money in order to buy a bigger property if they're having a bigger family. So, is it a great idea? I don't think so. But for everybody individually, just keep this in mind. It doesn't always make sense, and paying rent and renting somewhere is not always a bad thing. If you want to be a career bachelor or a bachelorette, is that a real word, Maddie?
It is.
It is today. Bachelor or bachelorette, and you want to stay for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, different ball game. If you know the market just crashed, and even if you don't know anything about real estate, you know you're definitely going to make out and you're not going to get hurt because it's 2009 again, okay. But in general, if you're somebody who's single, who's thinking about starting a family at some point, it's more intelligent, in my opinion, to rent and have the flexibility than it is to buy a co-op or a condo. As always, I appreciate you guys looking in. If you like this material, if you like the education, if you want to see more, please click the subscribe button.